Yeah, let's begin. First and foremost, welcome everyone to the Startup Support Cast. This is Startup Support Center. My name is Zachary Barker. I am the founder and executive director of the program. And for those of you that know me, know that one of my single most important aspects that I talk about in entrepreneurship is not business plans, it's not marketing strategies, it's not financial models, it is mental health, the emotional and psychological resilience that comes with building yourself up and preparing yourself for the roller coaster ride that is entrepreneurship. We are very fortunate. I feel very fortunate. We're very fortunate today to be graced by Mr. Fred Dearborn, who is a licensed professional counselor. This is Fred. For those of you, again, that know me a little bit, this is Fred. This is my counselor. This is the gentleman who works with me and helps me. And he has been kind enough to agree to share his insights with us. Let me essentially interview him here, and has also agreed to, as much as he's comfortable with, share the stories that we have together. I have told him I'm more than comfortable having discussions about some of the things that we've talked about. I want to be very transparent for all of my economic development friends and entrepreneurs so that you can see ultimately you're not alone. These are very common things that we're going to talk about. And when you feel uncommonly alone in those thoughts or in those moments, I just want everyone to be able to look at me and say, there's somebody else out there who gets it. And ultimately, if you don't have a Fred in your life, or you don't get to have Fred very specifically, you have somebody you can reach out to who will at least support you and then direct you to someone like that. So with no further ado, allow me to introduce Fred Dearborn. Fred, again, my counselor, has been in counseling for over 24 years, nearing 25 as best I can calculate. And Fred, correct me at any point that I'm wrong. Specialty in PTSD, working in some other aspects of EMDR. I'll let you kind of tell us a little bit more about you. How about that?
Yeah, I've actually been doing this work right out of my master's since 1994. So this is actually 30 years of doing this work. Been in private practice since around 2001, and focused a lot on trauma, but also this kind of work where I just support people in optimizing their lives and optimizing what they're doing. And if there's an underlying thing that I like to do is to create a sense of resilience for people, to for people to know how resilient and capable and adaptable that they are, and that if they just are able to tap into that they can get through just about any obstacle that's thrown at them.
Absolutely. And I can attest to that as well. It's been unbelievably helpful. We started on a different pathway. I think our very first discussions were around anxiety and depression. We came to a diagnosis of ADD. So unfortunately, I don't have the H. I'd be skinnier. And the ADHD, I just have the attention deficit part. And so we've treated that along the way, which has really helped alleviate a lot of the anxiety and depressive aspects, and has increased my resilience and capacity for managing through difficult times and difficult situations. So let me ask a couple questions, and again, we can take this whatever direction that we want throughout this question or throughout this kind of discussion. But you have, again, you have a specialty kind of in PTSD. Then the alternative, not alternative, but the other place is really this is what I would almost call is entrepreneurial support, entrepreneurial counseling, right? Because it really is about psychological and emotional endurance through difficult times. For me, it happens to be through entrepreneurship. But as far as entrepreneurs themselves, like what are the common mental health challenges that you see as an entrepreneur, right? And then also as a professional supporting entrepreneurs, but what are the common mental health challenges that you see that entrepreneurs face kind of in their day-to-day lives?
Well, one, and well, all of these we've talked about, but one is that entrepreneurs are often very isolated, because they're starting a business. They're the CEO of whatever business they're starting. And so they're at the top of the heap. Sometimes they're the only person in their business, so they're alone in that way, right? So that's one thing, is that sense of being just alone in the wilderness. And not having enough feedback to have a sense of that what they're doing is likely to succeed or be productive or useful, and so there's that kind of a sense of like an insecurity. So there's this weird combination between like this confidence that people who are creators and entrepreneurs have, and a deep insecurity that it's just none of it's going to work and I'm a big fake. Right. So that's certainly one of the big challenges that I see with entrepreneurs. Another one is with entrepreneurs, because they're often in a vacuum, um, it's easy to get off track, right? So they have a great idea and they end up focusing on stuff that isn't really effective. That sort of 80-20 rule where they're spending too much time doing stuff that doesn't really create results and not doing enough of the stuff that does create the results. And so I think sometimes having a feedback place to be able to keep track of that, just recognizing that, that wormhole is going to take a lot of energy and it's going to give me almost no results. Being able to keep track of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a sense of entrepreneurs often don't have a lot of accountability other than to their bottom line, right? But the small steps along the way kind of can get lost if there isn't anyone helping them keep track of things, even if it's just talking about it. So a lot of these are that idea of being alone and therefore having a hard time sometimes staying focused and continuing in the direction that's productive because of the fact that they don't really have structure or feedback. There's also the sense of they're often the person that believes in this big dream, and everyone around them kind of gets wrapped up in it, gets excited about it, but then is also scared. And so the support system they do have often is questioning them, is kind of almost undermining them in a way.
Yeah.
Not intentionally, but so those are a few of them. Are there any that you're thinking of that I haven't?
No, I think that's a great kind of segue. Is I wonder. So I do a lot of training. I do a lot of training in different places. Some of it's live, some of it's digital. But in the live trainings, again, I try to be very transparent about my struggles with anxiety and depression and ADHD and all of these things. And I find that people, I guess a lot of entrepreneurs tend to latch on to this kind of concept of I'm undiagnosed ADHD. They kind of go like, I also have a hard time, keeping things in order. I have piles of things all around my house, all these kind of like what I would say is like indicators of ADHD. So I'm wondering how much of like entrepreneurship or entrepreneurs, how much of the kind of ups and downs that we always hear about, how much of that is just pure like neurodivergence, like it's a chemical thing, like a depression or it's a mental aspect, like maybe a little autism, something like that, versus how much of it is just stress that we don't know how to manage, and it's just manifesting in these kind of different ways because at work we have an 8 to 5 and a manager and deadlines and all these things. So stress shows up differently for entrepreneurs. How much of that is stress? How much of that is neurodivergence? And is it just maybe kind of all one big mix? What's your observation and what are your thoughts kind of on that? Because again, I have a lot of people that kind of go, I have what you have, but they've never seen anybody to really address that and know more formally.
And so, from a perspective of like studies, I don't actually know the answer to that.
Sure.
So I'm just like
anecdotally.
My impression of this, but in my impression of it is that a lot of people who are entrepreneurs also are attention deficit disorder. It's almost because the neurodivergence of attention deficit disorder actually leads itself to being entrepreneurial, to being creative, to having like a hyper focus towards one thing. So I think there's quite a bit of ADD and ADHD in the entrepreneurial world, right?
Sure.
But I think entrepreneurs in general are creatives, and therefore the details and the minutia and the following through on things can just be challenging. You know, they're the
Oh,
big,
yeah.
they're the big. You guys are the big picture people. You
That's
know,
right. No, that's right. Well, and that's one of the discussions I think that we have a lot is um, there's this guilt almost. So I'm going to kind of lead into almost like the stigma of mental health is for a lot of people that I've been friends with who are entrepreneurs, for a lot of people who I know who are entrepreneurs, and that's the term I use, like aspiring, and then a lot of people who just really struggle at work. They kind of go through this idea of like, I'm flaky, I'm not good at this, I'm a disappointment, or they just start doing the thing where they go like, what's wrong with me? And, and I'm wondering how much of the stigma of mental health is kind of preventing people from being more successful. Because one of the discussions we have a lot is that, I didn't really choose to be an entrepreneur. I struggle in 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, 2 weeks of vacation environments. And it's not because I'm not good. I can be very good for a short period of time.
yeah. Then
But
you get bored.
eventually, and then I'm bored out of my mind. And then I quit. And then I look flaky and unreliable and all these things. Where entrepreneurship, because it's so weird and wild every day, it's fun and interesting. Although, yes, doing paperwork and all the minutia is very challenging. What are you seeing? And again, I realize I'm not asking for studies. I'm really just asking for your professional, opinion. Is are you seeing that the kind of the stigma, the historical stigma around mental health is shifting? Or are you seeing that it's even just shifting in entrepreneurship where people are becoming more accepting of, yeah, I'm a little bit different than everyone else. And if I can learn how to use it, maybe it can become very powerful for me. So what's your thoughts on kind of the cultural shift of mental health stigma around people seeking help and identifying themselves as maybe needing help?
Well, I would say twofold. One is I think in general the culture is leaning towards not just the entrepreneurial culture, but the culture in general is leading toward destigmatizing mental health support, right? Or just emotional support in general. So in that sense, I do think it's moving in that direction. And I think it's moving in that direction in the entrepreneurial world. And I think it's been more accepted when it's called coaching than when it's called counseling or something like that. But there are more people in the entrepreneurial world that are getting support from a mental health perspective. But I also think entrepreneurs are kind of the cowboys of the world. So on some level, it's a little bit of a lag time in terms of thinking that it's a good idea to get emotional support, because they are the, men and women that sort of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, handle it yourself attitude. Right.
Yeah, we sometimes think we're the smartest person in the room, which is true as long as we're alone.
Yeah, you are, except for when you're not, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And except for when you're doing stuff that's not good for you.
That's why we talk about it. That's why we get together, so you can go, hey, is that really the best choice? And admittedly, no, you are correct. I mean,
let's be honest. It's Zach. Why are you being a dumbass?
That's I want everyone who's watching to know that that's the exact terms that are used as well. So, but it's fair, right? It's fair because I say, like, I serve on some boards and I go, if there's 8 of us on a board and everyone agrees with me, I don't need you here. I already think I'm right. I already think that I'm smart. I already think that what I'm doing is righteous in a sense. What I need someone who can see what I can't see. And I think from a professional perspective is that you can see things that are linked, right? Not everybody has ADHD or ADD like I do, but you can see that, this is a stress trigger response that is coming from this environment, which will cause this, where I just wake up on a Tuesday and feel like crap and can't figure out what's going on. You kind of, a lot of times you, with me specifically, have seen where that came from, so we can work on a root cause as opposed to always just dealing in disaster, which I think for a lot of us entrepreneurs, because we don't have support systems, or we grew up in households where mental health was, boys don't cry, that kind of stuff. It's hard. And again, you're right. We are the Mavericks. We don't want to ask for help. If I wanted help, I would ask for help. I want to do it on my own. And it's kind of a hard way to go about things. But yeah, I think you're right.
And the other thing is, when you are dealing with someone, by the way, so, I think people are getting it already, but neurodivergence is anyone that's not sort of really in the norm in terms of mental health. So ADD would be considered a form of neurodivergence, where your brain chemistry really is different than the people that are in the
normal people.
The 75 to 85% of most people are, right? I don't really like people are not normal, but we're just talking from a statistical perspective.
Understood.
Right? Yeah,
most of my entrepreneur friends will tell you we're more shocked that everybody isn't like us. Like I continue to look around and I go, like, I'm not sure that this isn't normal and that everybody else is the oddball. And it is a superpower.
It's how we all filter the world. Is why aren't you all more like me?
That's right. That's right. Why aren't you people more like me? That's the real question. So, no, I love it. So that's a great segue. And because I have horrible ADD, I actually have questions prepared because I don't want to blow it getting excited about something along the way. But I think I don't want to make this an ADD or an ADHD discussion necessarily, but I do think, in my experience over 20 years of teaching this, that seems to be the one space that a lot of people find themselves, or they're kind of self-diagnosed, right? But they're finding that things around ADHD kind of are what they deal with, which, again, to your point, might be true because a lot of people end up in entrepreneurship because of these kind of neurodivergencies. So is ADHD, with it being such a common condition, what are the unique strengths for people who have this? Because I think the discussion when we talk about mental health is always kind of like, I'm a broken toy, what's wrong with me? And admittedly, I was like that until you and I have been working together over the last few years. And now I go like, you know what? I'm not a broken toy. What I am is actually a toy that can do way cooler things than all the other toys. You just didn't know how to play with it. And so you and I have tapped into these super strengths. But can you kind of share, from your professional and clinical experience, what is it that us ADHDers or ADDers can kind of say, like, you know what? There's nothing wrong with me because look at all the really amazing things that I can do with this power once we're able to harness it and support it and find people who can help us control it.
Well, I mean, you're the first and probably most prominent thing or superpower of people with ADHD, and I actually think it's like all entrepreneurs too, is a capacity for hyper focus on something that really matters to them. And so anyone who's starting a business, most of the time the business is a passion project as well as a business, right? And the ability to focus on it, often to the exclusion of many other things in their lives that might need to be focused on or taken care of. But it does allow you to get stuff done and to accomplish things that other people won't. So on the one hand, entrepreneurs can sometimes have difficulty following through, especially with the really mundane minutia stuff. But there's also this capacity to push through and just make things happen, get things done in order to get business off the ground. That's about the superpower of focus, concentration, on something that's important, and also it's like the best version of a stubbornness to not let something go until it works.
That's fair. That's very fair. I think one of the other things that I've had friends talk about, and I recognize it. I don't know that it's my particular flavor of a superpower from the ADHD perspective, but is the ability to quickly analyze things, see a trend, and make fast decisions. Do you find that that's also one of kind of the unique kind of power aspects of people who are ADHD or ADD divergent?
Well, I think that's part of the hyper focus. I also think
Gotcha.
I also think that, and I actually think this is statistically accurate, that people with ADHD are like highly intelligent quite often. So they have an ability
Come
to
on.
be. Yeah,
I'm here for this. Keep going. Keep going.
well, but it is true with you, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, thanks, man.
you created a program that other people are going, oh my God, this stuff's amazing, right? And the way you've organized and the way you're presenting it and the reason that you just like you have a vision.
Yeah.
And and with vision there's often this sort of ability to see a problem and solve the problem, like the solution to the problem almost comes along with the problem. Like,
Hmm.
it's like
Hmm.
that's your brain's work so much in that problem solving realm that it's like by seeing the problem you literally solve it. That's kind of a superpower of entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I'll take that too. I think one other thing that so I struggled with a lot, but again, I'm trying to bring the things that I hear, kind of quote unquote, in the streets to you, so that they can kind of also go like, oh yeah, that's me, or or no, I don't have to feel that way. I found that like so I was a banker early on,
Mhm.
and I was the marketing guy for a bank, and when a project needed let's just say multitasking, right, when you had to work like five things at once, I would continue to hear in business management classes is like, if you're focusing on five things, you're focusing on nothing. Your brain can only do one thing at a time. But what I
Not
found was is that one thing at a time for me, if it wasn't fun, was really hard. Doing five things at a time was, even if it was boring stuff, was fun because I was kind of like spinning plates, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so how is that a function of ADHD for people, or ADD for entrepreneurs, and is that something that you see really as a benefit? Again, are these the things that us as entrepreneurs, you literally are just going like, for regular, again, quote unquote, normal people, which I don't love that term either, but for regular folks, they can't juggle five things at once. But maybe the people who are even working and thinking like, maybe I should be an entrepreneur, maybe this is one of those tells for them to say like, if you thrive in extremely high pressure, short term, like, we talked about, I did a big project in 24 hours that typically would take people days. That was the hyper focus thing. But having a lot of stuff moving is very, very entertaining for me and helps me actually thrive. How does the multitasking aspect of ADHD and entrepreneurship, how do you see that working?
Yeah, no, I think it absolutely is a strength of. So I think you know this, but let me just say this for people in general, that ADD is misunderstood, right? People think it is like a focus and attention
Hmm.
problem. It's actually a problem. The brain is understimulated, right? So when someone has attention deficit disorder, they need stimulation. And so
Hmm.
that's just what we're talking about. If you've got 5 to 10 things going on that are sort of boring, at least it's exciting that you have 5 to 10 things going on,
That's right.
right? So even
That's right.
balancing this or keeping the spinning plates going is stimulating,
Correct.
whereas one task is like watching paint dry.
Correct.
That makes you want to throw your racket, right?
Correct. Correct. Correct.
Whereas if you're playing 5 people, oh, this is fun.
That's
This is
exactly right.
a game I want to play,
That's
because
exactly right.
it's giving your brain the dopamine that it needs.
Yep.
That's not there in most, in attention deficit disorder.
Which is probably also, I'm gonna say this. I think I know the answer because you and I have talked about it, but I want everybody to be able to hear it. It's also why a lot of times entrepreneurs or people who are working inside a company but are struggling and kind of are flirting with entrepreneurship, why when a project is due in 2 weeks, we wait until 2 days beforehand. Is
Yeah,
2 weeks ago it wasn't really interesting. I couldn't think about it. I couldn't focus. That's why I always tell people that's my ADD. I can't focus on it when it's not a priority, when it's boring or when it's disinteresting. But when you give me 4 hours to do a 10-hour project, now all of a sudden the fog clears. I know exactly what to do. I can sit down, grab two sodas, and just hammer this thing out. And people will go, wow, this is amazing work. You must put a lot of time into it. And I kind
yeah,
of laugh because I put like 2.5 hours into this huge project. but I probably have put, 20 years into it and thinking about how to solve problems all the time. So when it does clear up, you can get to it. Is that what you see again with people? So, I mean, really, we're just trying to help folks at home who are kind of going through this, go like, my boss hates me because I never finish things early. And maybe it's just that they're an intrapreneur, right? They're the entrepreneur that works inside the company, and the people just don't understand them.
No, I think that's, again, that stimulation thing.
Okay.
Until the project is at a place where you're pretty sure you don't have time to get it done, it's actually not in.
Correct. If there's no risk, there's no interest in doing it. So.
If you're not going to die, then it's not that interesting, right?
That's right. That's the hiking theory, right? We have the hiking theory. It's like, but did you die? No, You're good. Keep going. Yeah.
But if there's a possibility of dying, then hiking's a little more interesting.
That's exactly right. So that's actually an interesting question as well. Then, so again, I was talking in Idaho this past week. I went 43 years just thinking something was wrong. Like, I really, for 20 of those years, I thought I was just depressed, and I couldn't, because I didn't feel depressed, but I couldn't figure anything else out. And, you and I, came together, and we came with this diagnosis and this treatment. The diagnosis doesn't make it true. The treatment proves that it is. And I kind of laughed because I'm like, well, now I'm playing 5-card poker with 5 cards. I feel like I was playing with 4 beforehand. But for those people who aren't at a point yet where they're seeking diagnosis, or they're self-diagnosed, which again has its own flavors of risk, but for the people who are kind of looking at this and going like, I think I have that thing too, what are, just offhand, kind of like, what are some strategies for entrepreneurs to manage the symptoms like impulsivity, distractibility, organization? Do you have kind of, again, I realize systems are made for people, but do you have kind of just some general rules of thumb that you think work really well for people in this space around managing ADHD or ADD and kind of a day-to-day progress?
I wish I could give you a straightforward answer to that, but that really is person to person. Like, that's you got to find the thing that helps the person stay focused, the thing that matters enough. And sometimes there is the matter of like getting someone on medication, or using caffeine strategically to help focus. That's a tricky thing, because there's lots of ways to create accountability, and I do think having someone else to be accountable to, having people to be accountable to, is probably the best general answer to that. But at the same time, sometimes entrepreneurs can even be that kind of rebellious type that if they're accountable to someone, they're going to say, fuck you.
No, that's right.
But so even that can be a double-edged sword. Like, that's where having a professional is useful, because you got to find the thing that works, right? And for you, part of what, and
please share about me, because that's what I want you to do with them as well.
Part of what worked was just owning that you didn't have to be mad at yourself for being this, right? And then, as you didn't have to be mad at yourself, you could start letting go of the things that you didn't really want to be doing, and only doing that you really wanted to be doing. And so it's finding what works for individual people.
I wonder if I could say it like this: is like, and again, this is my observation on the other side of it. Is that you've helped me tremendously. You've helped me kind of figure out some of the triggers that cause the negatives. But what we're seeking is to find the triggers that activate the positives. And I'll give 2 examples. One, so for anyone watching, I have become a very competitive tennis player. I've been a very competitive athlete my whole life. I wasn't always a great athlete, but I was very competitive. And part of what we've talked about is this. For me to effectively perform, I have to have this kind of low level anger. I have to kind of be pissed off at the person across from me And I always felt very bad because I felt like I was a bad person because I walk onto the court or the field or the basketball court or whatever, and I just want to destroy this person across from me, but I don't want to be an asshole. I don't want to be a jerk. I don't want people to not like me. And I really struggled with this balance of, this unwillingness to be my authentic self was preventing me from performing like myself, which then was causing me anxiety and stress, and then created all these negative things. And so you and I together, and I really do, I think part of my answer to the question of how do we manage this is start with somebody who knows what they're doing and have them help you. But you and I working through even the idea of kind of like an alter ego in a sense, right? Is, you kind of like Yoda is the good guy, Darth Vader is the bad guy. But if you really think about it, they're the same guy. It's just a matter of what scenario it's in, and being able to tap into Darth Vader and say, you know what, today you gotta go. And it's okay to do, because when it's over, then you can be the nice guy again that I am, just not in that scenario. And so trying to find those triggers to be able to turn it off and on to prevent the bad stuff, but turn on the good stuff.
And not feel guilty about the fact that you sometimes use intense competition and even anger at someone to motivate yourself to get stuff done.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
If that works for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell a quick story. Hopefully you'll appreciate this and laugh and remember this. Is I was having trouble getting stuff done. I think it was a website build or something that I was working on. And I came in a couple weeks in a row and was like, I'm kind of, I don't know. Blah, 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 blah. I could just tell I just wasn't in on it yet. And Fred was just kind of like, stop being you fill in the word, right? Stop being that, get it done. And I was like, ooh, you know what, man, stop doing, stop being at me like that. And you were like, you know what, let's do this. Let's put some money on it. And I thought, oh, now it's interesting, right? My counselor, the person who's here to help me, goes, why don't we put some cash on it? And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. So I wrote out a check. To a group that I did not want to give money to. And we said, you got 7 days. You come back here next Tuesday. If it's not done, then Fred had the check and he was going to send it off. And I was going to contribute to something that I didn't want to contribute to. And all of a sudden, I think it took me the next day. And I was like, done. And then I walked in. I was like, give me that check back. We're good. We're good. And now that won't work every time for me, but it works in scenarios, right? And I think to your very point is if I didn't have you and we didn't have a great relationship, we wouldn't be able to figure out that competition is one of the things that really helps me focus. Mm-hmm. Some of it is positive competition like work. Some of it is more, I want to say negative, but angry competition, right? Can be perceived as negative in like the sports capacity. But what I think really you've done is to help me understand when it's okay to use it. Not even okay. When it's best, let's say it's not okay because it's not judgment. It's when it's best to use it and how best to use it. And when, to try something else. It's like, okay, maybe ratchet it down here because that's a little too intense. And so we've kind of figured out how to it sounds bad. Like I'm a grown man. I should be able to manage myself. But that I think is the point of this entire discussion is I am a grown man and I am a good person. I've been fairly successful in life and I can manage myself except this. And man, if I had this thing figured out, I'd really be good at it. And that's what you've opened the door for. So again, I give you your flowers here. Thank you so much. It's been so much better recently since all of this. So let me ask you that. Oh, go ahead.
Maybe put a finishing point on it is that what I believe in is functionality, right? Which is I want things to work for people. And if someone needs to be angry to get through something, then okay. If someone needs to believe there's a pile of chocolate at the end of the day to get through, then that's okay. Like whatever works is what it is we want to find for people. Yeah. And sometimes that you need someone else to help you find those leverage points. Yeah. And they can be different one situation to another.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we when I teach, I talk a lot about like what's your what does success look like, and I find sometimes people are sad or almost defensive. They go like I don't really want to say because it's shallow, and then they'll tell me they're like you know what I want I want a Range Rover and I want a house on the beach. It's like I don't want to save the world. I don't want to end hunger. I just want cool stuff, and I want to, I want to go to big parties, and I always feel like, and again, I'm not judged. I go like, whatever gets you going, I'm for. Which is
Yeah.
ironic, again, is because I have trouble looking at myself in that light as an entrepreneur. But as a trainer, I see it and I go, that's nothing selfish about that at all. That's your motivator. And I think what again, to your point, is that you've helped me to understand that I don't have to feel guilty about wanting to win so bad that I can run people over. Like, and if you get run over, it's, again, I'm always sorry, but sometimes I'm sorry a week later when I figured out I ran you over. But that's okay too. That was part of how we had to get here.
Because sometimes if you don't run someone over, your business doesn't happen.
That's right.
That's right. And that business could be employing, 5, 10, 20, 100 people.
Correct.
So so one person kind of got their feelings hurt or something because they really were just getting in the way.
Yeah.
And if you're so sensitive that you won't do that to someone to create a business, you're robbing 100 other people of a job. It's like, don't do that.
Amen, brother. Say it louder for the people in the back.
Create businesses.
Yeah, it's like, absolutely. Absolutely. So let me ask you this. I've got just a couple more questions, but so I think one of the unique things, and again, I don't want to make this all about ADHD, but I do have a segment here because I think that's something a lot of people have familiarized themselves with me for. I think one of the unique things is that ADD, at least in my flavor, there are some very key strengths. There are some things that you go like, man, when I turn this on, it is, it is Batman becoming Batman. Like, it's awesome, or Superman, Batman, whatever. I think the other side is that a lot of times entrepreneurs, because we're alone, we feel like we have to do everything. And so what are your thoughts around like kind of like managing, I even hate to say weaknesses, like we use the word strength, so the opposite is weakness, but the things I'm not good at, should I, as someone who has ADD, should I be focused on making these blind spots better? Or should I just be all in on my strengths and find systems or people or somebody else to help me with the other side? Like, what is your thought? And I realize people at home will say like, oh, money, time, but I get all that. But in an ideal situation, is it better for me to spin all the plates, or is it better for me to be all in on one side?
No, the sooner you can not be doing the things you don't like doing, the better. Right? So whether it's system that you put in place or it's finding someone who likes to do that part of the job, is the sooner you can stay focused on what you're good at, the better.
Would you say that part of that is kind of going back to the, like, if I'm doing one thing that's boring, it sucks. If I'm doing 5 things that suck, it's kind of interesting. But if I could live in that zone where I'm just giving myself dopamine, like if I'm only doing things that are interesting and fun, and I have this kind of like heightened ability to get stuff done, then kind of in that, just saying it out loud, like it makes total sense that all I should be doing is things that like fuel the machine, and everything else as quickly as possible I should be trying to get rid of.
Yes. And what I would say is if generally speaking, 90% of the time you're doing the stuff that you really enjoy doing, that feed you, that are energizing, then the 10% got to handle some kind of minutia, you have the energy to do it.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
Able to get it handled, right? But if you're doing like 50-50, you're going to be dragged down.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Leaving that conference that I was speaking at this past week, I went to the airport and I was so high afterwards. It felt so good because I spent 2 days teaching, speaking, training, working with people, that I sat down and I literally put all of my receipts into a spreadsheet, had all my expenses done. I emailed it over. I used the form they wanted. And she was like, this is great. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I actually did that. It usually takes me 6 months to turn that stuff in. But it was doing it at the time when I was I had the space, I had the time to do it, and I had a high energy level coming off of this jet fuel that I've been drinking for 2 days.
Exactly.
All right, everybody at home, y'all listen to that. Like, stop doing dumb stuff that's boring. Even if you can make it fun, it's still boring. So, okay, I'll get out of here with a couple more questions. So, one of my questions, you and I have talked a bit about it. I will admittedly say on recorded Zoom that I know that diet and fitness are one of the keys to what I'm about to ask, and that is the area that I struggle in because I find it unbelievably boring. I love competing. I don't like training. But what would you say for people who are entrepreneurs who do experience some level of this kind of neurodivergence? Again, just entrepreneurs in general have a different mental health landscape because of the amount of stimulation and how we receive it. What would you suggest as far as healthy routines or habits that will help entrepreneurs to better balance just their well-being overall in running their business, from maybe a physical standpoint, spiritual standpoint? I know you and I have talked about, I'll let you tell the story, but the gentleman who works in body movement, but like, what do you see as routines that really would help someone like me? Say me, the first day you met me, is just go like, look, I may not see you again, but if you can just follow these couple things, you're going to give yourself a fighting chance at least, right? Until you're all in on getting help and building systems.
Well, this I would say is not any different than just any human being, right? And with the caveat of saying that don't force yourself to do anything. If you just don't want to do it, don't force yourself, or don't give yourself crap for not doing it, right? That's the thing that's not helpful.
Yeah.
But there's some basic things that we know cause people to feel better in the world and feel more balanced and to feel better, right? So one, you talked about it, exercise. You don't have to do anything extreme.
If you hate running, don't run. That's what you're saying.
Literally know that if you walk...
Nancy, did you hear that?
Yeah. If you walk 20 minutes a day,
yeah,
right? Literally, if you walk 20 minutes a day, it has a huge boost in terms of mental health and how you feel.
Got
it. But find a way of moving your body that you enjoy. That's for an entrepreneur. So even if it's just playing tennis, well, then you're playing tennis. You're at least moving on a regular basis, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
That at least like 4 times a week kind of thing.
Yeah.
So one, movement, right? Diet. Everyone talks about diet, but it is useful. If you're attention deficit disorder and you're eating a lot of sugar and you're flooding your system with like dopamine with chemicals, then the system crashes. Your attention deficit disorder is going to be even worse, right?
Oh yeah.
Eating well balanced, and find that out for yourself what that is. But eating well is good. And I'm not talking about weight loss. I'm talking about just eating in a way that's healthy for you. So eating, exercise, sleep is useful.
That's hard for the ADD and really just entrepreneurs in general. There's just in the beginning, there's just not enough of that sleep. But sleep, 100%, right? If you're sleep deprived, you're going to be miserable.
Yep. Rest, sleep, useful.
Yeah.
The connection to people, that's useful, especially if you're starting a business and you're in the sort of void a lot of times of starting a business, or you're only talking to people that are dealing with the starting of the business. It's like, no, make sure you stay connected to the people in your life that matter to you and that you matter to. And even having those sort of daily social touches with your barista and the person at the supermarket, and just make sure you're kind of to your community, on a daily basis, if at all, to what degree you can, right? That's also useful.
If your only work friend is your dog, you might need more people. You're right. I mean, I talked to the barista I've met. There's just this little gal who goes to the university here. She works at Starbucks. Every time I come in, she's there. She always asks me how my day is. We know each other's names, and it's just like, it's kind of like seeing like a little single serving friend for a second, and just that smile and have a great day is it's just enough to pick your mood up a little bit. You know what I mean? So
there's actually research that says that when people have like a good number of those kind of touches through most days, they're even better than people that have like good, deeper relationships. Something very soothing about being connected to a community at large.
So
that And then I'll just throw in there like meditation of some
Yeah.
form or other is helpful. I like there's lots of different things out there, but one of the things I like is something called Heart Math.
Hmm.
Um, it's an app, and
Okay.
you can
Yeah.
basically just you can watch you set a breath monitor so that you breathe in sync with this breathing
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
and that's all it is, and it
Yeah.
like literally 5 to 10 minutes a day it's just a good idea.
Yeah. Just to
Not
center yourself.
Yeah, it's not necessary, but it's
Yeah.
useful.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of in that realm of working out, movements, meditation. I used to do yoga all the time, and it was by far the greatest physical thing I've done. It didn't feed my competition side was the problem. But if I could find a way to compete at yoga, maybe that's the answer. They tell me that that's not the point of yoga. I disagree, but I want to win yoga too.
But
But yeah,
if you know that meditation, for example, like 10 minutes of meditation would make you 15% better at tennis,
yeah.
you'd
Oh,
probably
100%.
do it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. No, I definitely, and I do that before matches. I sit for a couple minutes by myself. I put my hands
yeah,
over my face like that so I can feel my breath, and I just try to
yeah,
center. And that's a good thing, I would say, even for entrepreneurs. Like, you're going into a tough meeting. I heard something on YouTube the other day. It said, I think it was Kobe Bryant. He said the difference between nervousness and excitement is just your interpretation, because
yeah,
you are short of breath, your heart rate is high, you're a little bit sweaty. Like, that is being nervous. It's also
yep.
being excited, like ready to perform, and being scared to perform physiologically feel the same. It's interpretive on how you get through it. So,
Yeah.
okay, last question, because I don't want to keep you forever, and I know you've worked a long day as well. So, um, when I go to these conferences and I speak, or when I talk to folks, um, you'll love this. Hopefully, you'll appreciate this. You are famous in crowds that you don't know, because people will say, "Is like, where do I find my Fred? How do I find my person?" Like, and I had a gal just recently, this last week. She said, I've seen 15 different people. Like, how did you find him? And I kind of joke. I was like, my wife actually is the one who found you through a friend, and it was just kind of happenstance. But I think maybe for me, the first answer is that if you find someone and it doesn't work, you just find someone else.
Okay,
Um,
go into
but
the
what
next.
does Yeah, but what does the process look like for people who are a little apprehensive or come from kind of like machismo cultures? There's, again, going maybe back to stigmas. There's a little bit of fear and hesitancy to come in and go like, man, I don't want to talk to a head shrinker. It's going to be weird. Da, 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 da. What is the process of connecting with someone like yourself? And then what are you looking at in that first meeting just by itself? Like, how can you help take the pressure off for all those people who are sitting on that edge going like, I know I should see somebody, but I'm just a little hesitant. How is that experience, or how should that experience work in your opinion? I realize
Well,
it'll change for different people, but
first thing is like a perception shift, which
mhm,
is when you go to look for a counselor or a therapist, right? There's an inherent power differential, and so people sort of almost feel like the therapist is choosing them, even though that's not actually how it works.
mhm,
It's really clear that you're hiring someone for you.
yeah,
So you don't want to be with someone that you feel judged by, or if you feel uncomfortable with, or that you don't feel is particularly useful to you. It's like
yep,
you want to go into the session like what as if you're interviewing the therapist,
yeah,
even if like asking them a bunch of questions, because asking a bunch of questions about someone's qualifications isn't going to do shit for you.
yeah,
That's not going to do anything about them as a therapist, right?
yeah, yeah,
It's like, how do you feel? Do you feel better after the session? Are you getting more productive? Are there things that you're learning? Is it useful to you? So those are the questions that I want people to be asking and to be aware of, is that they are picking a therapist. The therapist is not picking them,
correct.
right? Now,
Yeah,
a therapist could say, "I don't think this is going to be a fit. Let's get another." But you're the one hiring someone.
yeah,
Be clear that's the position you're in. It's actually a position of power rather than a position of weakness. And people read it like it's a position of weakness.
Yeah.
And it's not. You're saying, hiring someone to support me in being my best self.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
No different than hiring someone to like run your accounting.
Correct.
Right?
As I say, it's like hiring your lawyer or your accountant. You're going to go in, you're going to have questions. You're going to make sure that they're responsive to you, work with you, that you guys vibe together. You know, I kind of joke with people all the time. I go, the first time, I think you and I had seen each other a handful of times. And then I just offhand one time just cussed. And it was just it was just kind of I don't know what I would say. It's just kind of an authentic moment of me. For people who've met me, they know, you know, my grandmother was Sicilian. Sometimes that stuff just slips out, right? And then you mirrored it back. But I could tell you were comfortable, and maybe you were more comfortable, right? And all of a sudden it was like, oh, you just cussed like I cussed. And it wasn't fake. It wasn't like, oh, let me say a bad word now too. It was, nope, we just unlocked that next level. And that was the moment where I went like, oh crap, I can just be here. Like, I don't have to fake like, you know, I'm kind of okay, but this part, I'm not going to tell this part. And there's been plenty of times I know I've come in, I've just dropped F-bombs left and right because I'm all worked up and, you know, there's never been a, hey man, don't, and get it, you know, certain people are comfortable, less comfortable, whatever. But that was one of those endearing moments for me. I went, Fred is my people. And I found my place, and really, I think it's shifted where you're right, is that you have become an asset for me, you know, not just a person I see, but, you know, a person who really helps me and really on some level is a very important friend in my life, is somebody that I can trust to have difficult conversations with, you know, that's somebody other than my wife and my mom, which, you know, even they only can understand some of the conversations, and some of them clinically just don't even make sense. So, so there should be no judgment, though. You're saying very, very clearly, I should be able to walk in. I'm in control, even though I'm feeling vulnerable and you know, anxious and all this. Is I'm still going in and I'm hiring you. So if it does not work, it is a thanks for coming by, see you later, not a I hope this guy picks me to help me so I'm not a broken toy anymore.
Yeah, you're the boss. You're hiring someone. You can fire them. Not working.
Love it. Love it.
Now, in terms of finding someone, one is the first thing is sometimes you got to go through a bunch of people to find the person that feels like the right fit.
Yeah.
Right. That's just one thing. The other thing is you can tap into the people in your life and just ask for references and referrals, because that are good therapists, other people will talk about.
Yeah.
So,
correct.
So if other people, you know, if you talk to someone, they go, oh, I got someone that really works, is great. And number, it's like, try that person out.
Yeah.
Because there's like a percentage of people in the therapy world that are good, effective therapists.
Yeah.
And a people that are helpful and useful, but maybe not like that cream of the crop.
Correct.
Right. Or that, you know, the ones that are going to be most effective for you.
Correct. Correct. I get it. I love it. I appreciate it. I cannot tell everybody, like, if you're scared, just go once, just one time. And if it's miserable, find a different way. But if it's just meh, like it's like, it was all right, go a second time. Just go until you can prove it is or isn't what you need or want, or it doesn't help, and then go from there. I went in there with that mentality, and I think that was 3 years ago. So we've been together a long time now, and I was like, we'll see. I don't know. And we went a complete different direction than I expected, and we're on a path that I would never thought I'd be on. And you know, it's the path I needed to be, and I just needed someone to be able to walk me down it. So it's
on that path with you. It's been a great ride.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Well, good. Well, that's, you know what? I won't keep you any longer. I cannot tell you thank you enough. I just, from me to you, thank you. I know I'm going to see you tomorrow, but thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for believing in me. For everybody who's watching, like, also the people who support you will support you in all of it. I mean, maybe not. I hope you find your Fred. Fred's spoken for me a different thing. Like this has been a beautiful relationship, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you. And I just want to say that publicly so that you know it. And I hope that everybody else can find what I have found and what we have found, and can find their support out there as well. It means the world to me. So
I appreciate it.
Try not to get emotional on camera. So with all that being said, this is the end of the Startup Support Cast episode related to mental health for entrepreneurs. If you have more questions about mental health, please reach out to me. If you want to connect with Fred, reach out to me and I will do my best to do so. I know that he is quite busy as well, but he also has friends and there are people that can help. If you are not in the great state of Colorado, we will do our best to find you somebody in your great state, because your individual does need to be licensed within your own state. But with all that being said, I do wish and hope and pray that everyone can find the support that you're looking for, whether that be business support, financial support, sales and marketing, or most importantly, at least in my opinion, is the mental health, emotional, psychological resilience support. So go forward, do great things, entrepreneurs. Don't be afraid. And just remember, if you haven't pissed somebody off, you're not trying hard enough. And Fred will definitely agree with that one. So, So if there's anything we can do for you, please reach out, startsupported.com, Zach, Z-A-C-H, at startsupported.com. And we look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thanks again, Fred. Appreciate you very, very much.
Sure.